if you're repurchasing stock just a bullet higher, it's deeply immoral. But if you're repurchasing stock because it's a fair thing to do in the interest of your existing shareholders, it's a highly moral act. And the people who are criticizing it are bonkers.
Share buybacks, that's what we're going to be unpacking in today's video. Looking at the pros and cons of when it is a good move by management to be buying back shares of the company. And in today's video, as an example, we're going to be looking at a company called Shinoken Group. For those that aren't aware, Shinoken Group is listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange under the ticker code 8909. And this is a company that we saw Mohnish Pabrai buying into earlier in the year, and it currently holds around 6-7% of the company. Second largest shareholder of Shinoken Group, actually. But today we're going to be looking at their most recent announcement to try and get a gauge on, is this a good move by management to be buying back shares? Then we'll also look at a time when it's not a good time for companies to be buying back shares as well. But before we jump into it, guys, if you do get some value from today's video, please do us a favor, hit that like button, helps me out a ton, helps push these videos out a bit further. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button, that way you can stay up to date when the next video drops. With that said, let's crack straight into today's video. Okay guys, before we jump in and have a look over Shinoken's recent announcement, I've put together a little example here just to show the pros and cons of buying back shares and also the dilution of shares where the company issues more shares as well. Just to show how it really affects us as shareholders. So we have the adventurous Reit. This fictitious company earned $10 million last year in revenue. And currently, the company has 1 million shares outstanding. So what we need to do here is try and figure out how much gets returned to us as shareholders on a per share basis. So let's have a quick look. So we take the $10 million in revenue and we divide that by the 1 million shares outstanding. This gives us a total of $10 earnings per share. So let's jump through and have a quick look what would happen if the company was to issue more stock. So let's say the company's going through a turbulent time. Something's happened like we saw last year with the whole pandemic broke out. A lot of companies had to issue new stock in order to stay afloat so the company didn't go bankrupt. Unfortunately, they were doing this when the market was really hammering down and their company was worth not as much as it may have been prior to the pandemic. And this is not a good time to be issuing stock as it dilutes the shareholders even more again. If you are issuing stock, you'd like to do this when your share prices are ideally at intrinsic value or even above intrinsic value. Your money goes a lot further without the heavy dilution. But sometimes, companies do have to issue more shares in order to make an acquisition or to pay down some debt. Maybe they've taken a lot of debt that they can't afford to pay. So there could be a number of reasons why a company wants to issue more shares. But let's just have a quick look how this can affect us as shareholders. So let's say the company, we still have that 1 million initial shares that we had outstanding, but yet need to issue another 1 million shares for whatever reason. Like I said, there's a multitude of reasons why a company may want to issue more shares. So now currently we have 2 million shares outstanding, but yet the company still only has that $10 million in earnings, in revenue, let's say. So we take that $10 million in revenue and then we divide that by the 2 million shares that are currently outstanding. This is decreasing our earnings per share by half. So now us as shareholders, we're only getting $5 earnings per share. So we can just see how the more issue of more stock can really affect how much gets returned to us as shareholders. So this is a negative example. It depends on what they're doing with that capital that they are having to issue. If they're looking at making an acquisition that can dramatically increase revenue, then that could be a good opportunity there. But you've really got to look at why they're issuing more shares. Is it just to pay down some debt or whatever it could possibly be? So definitely something to be wary of. There's been a multitude of examples of how this has happened and the pros and cons of that. Let's jump over to the last example, which shows the benefits of a share buyback. So we've still got the adventurous Reit. We're back to the 1 million shares outstanding. But let's say they want an aggressive plan. They want to buy back half of the amount of shares that are currently outstanding. So they want to buy back 500,000 shares that are currently outstanding. And this might be over 6 months or a year or 2 years or whatever it may be. It could even be over 5 years. But this is what the management has come out and said. They want to buy back half the amount of shares that are currently outstanding. Let's say that they do this, but yet the company still is only earning that $10 million revenue. We take our $10 million in revenue, and now we divide that by 500,000 because there's only 500,000 shares currently outstanding. This gives us a $20 earnings per share. So we can see how that dramatically doubles our earnings per share. So this is great. If we see management buying back shares, especially when the company is currently trading below what it's intrinsically worth. A good example of this was last year when we saw Warren Buffett heavily buying back Berkshire Hathaway stock. He bought back about $10 billion worth of shares for the company, which was great for shareholders if you're a shareholder with Berkshire Hathaway, as this is increasing, your piece of the pie essentially with Berkshire Hathaway without having, any tax obligations. Whereas if he was to pay out a dividend, then you'd have to pay tax on the dividend and so forth. This is a sort of a sneaky way around that. So yeah, great little example there. Look, if you've got any questions on anything I covered off on there, drop it in the comments below and I'll do my best to sort of help you out in any which way. Let's jump on over and have a quick look over the recent announcement by Shinoken, and then we'll finish up by listening to Warren Buffett to share his thoughts around what he thinks is his thoughts around share buyback. This is the latest announcement made by Shinoken on September 1st, 2021. To whom it may concern, just going to roll down through here and have a quick look what's actually come out. So notice regarding the determination of matters relating to buyback of shares of common stock. Repurchase of shares under the certain act there. So we hereby inform you that Shinoken Group Limited resolved at a meeting on the board of directors held on September 1st to buy back shares of its common stock. Reason for buyback of shares to promote capital efficiency and agile capital policy in view of the business environment. So let's have a quick look at how many shares they're looking at buying back. So class of shares for the buyback, common stock. This is not treasury stock or anything like that. Total number of shares for this buyback is looking at 500,000 shares. This is the maximum, and this represents 1.44% of the total number of issued shares currently outstanding for Shinoken. Like I said, this excludes the treasury stock. Total purchase price for the buyback is 500 million Japanese yen. This is the maximum, and the period of the buyback is starting from the September 2nd, 2021 to October 15th, 2021. So I'm not too sure how much they're going to be buying back on a daily basis or anything like that, but we may see the share price slowly increase over the next sort of month and a half or so with them buying back stock. Total number of issued shares excluding treasury stock as it currently stands, this is September 1st, is 34,712,490 shares, and then they also have the treasury stock coming in at 1.667,910 shares there as well. Then they also have the employee benefit there, which I think is for up-and-coming employees within the company. They have some sort of scheme there. I'm not too sure exactly how that works. And they have 19,500 shares of the company stock held by the Stock Benefit Trust as a trust assets for the Employee Stock Benefit Trust, the JESOP plan. So that's just a real basic snapshot, guys, of what they're planning on doing over the next sort of month and a half. Look, I think this is a good move currently at the moment for Shinoken, as I believe that the intrinsic value is almost double what currently Shinoken is currently trading at. Just for my basic projections, I mean, by all means, do your own projections around that. I actually have made another video around the, or what I believe to be the intrinsic value of Shinoken. So by all means, check that out if you want to a bit more curious around that. But I'm quite happy to see this share buyback. Like I say, it's not a huge amount, only 1.44%, but it's good to see that they are buying back shares, especially when Shinoken is trading at the current price that it is. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap that one up there. Let's move over and just listen to some wise words from Buffett to see what his thoughts are around with regards to share buybacks.
All right, this question comes from Denny Poland, a shareholder from Pittsburgh. A prominent senator recently categorized share buybacks as a form of market manipulation. You've often said that repurchasing shares at prices below intrinsic value benefits continuing shareholders. Could you and Charlie please elaborate on the higher order effect that these share repurchases have on society?
Yeah, their way essentially of distributing cash to the people that want the cash when other co-owners mostly want you to reinvest, and it's a savings vehicle. If the four of us sitting at this table decided we'd buy a few Dairy Queen franchises, we form a little company, and we all put in $1 million or something like that, and we buy the Dairy Queen franchises, and they're doing well. And three of the four of us want to keep buying more Dairy Queen franchises, and we're not done building and saving for the future. And we're in the wealth creation business. And the fourth one says, "Listen, I've gotten rich enough. I'd rather take some money out." And well, there's only two ways to do it. We can pay dividends to all four of us, three of us of whom don't want it, and we can repurchase the shares at a fair price. If it's just the four of us, we pick out a fair price, and the fourth one gets bought out of his interest. I find it almost impossible to believe some of the arguments that are made that it's terrible to repurchase shares from a partner if they want to get out of something, and you're able to do it at a price that's advantageous to the people that are staying, and it helps slightly the person that wants out, and a majority of the Berkshire shareholders, a great majority. We had a vote on dividends one time. We've got savers. Now, that's partly because we've advertised ourselves as being that sort of a vehicle. We've created that something. We've stuck with it for 50-something years. And people individuals, huge number, look at Berkshire as something they're going to own until they die. Now, they may their circumstances may change, their needs may change, but the savers generally keep saving. We just recently had somebody that father came with us 60 years ago and billions of dollars, and they weren't saving exactly for their old age. Just was sort of built into them that they like to do it. Now philanthropies will get a lot of money and so on. And, it's the most. What could be more logical than if a very small minority of your holders want to get out and most of them want to stay in, and the person who wants to get out wants the money? You don't give the money to everybody. You give it to the one who wants it, and you do it at a price that is beneficial to most parties. On a private deal, you'd work out the fair value. The market tells you the value in the case of a publicly traded company.
I hope you got some value there, just going over the basics of, looking at the pros and cons around companies buying back shares. I'd love to hear from you guys though. Do you think it's a good move by management at the moment of Shinoken to be buying back shares? Like I said, I personally think it's a great move, and I'm very happy to see as a shareholder that they are currently looking at buying back shares over the next month, as I currently still see the share price as being quite undervalued, to be honest. So I'm very happy to see them buying back shares at current prices. But like I said, if we were seeing the price up around 3,000 yen, probably not the better move. Be better to probably put that money back into the business, back into growing the business further. But at current prices, I'm very happy to see them buying back shares. But that's just my take on it. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you think this is a good move by management at the moment? If you've got any questions on anything I covered off on there, drop in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you as fast as I can. But with that said, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there for today's video. If you got some value, please consider hitting that like button. Helps me out a ton, helps push these videos out a bit further. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date when the next video drops. That's it, guys. We're going to wrap it up for today's video. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks again. Cheers, guys.